Change is real. It takes leadership and ingenuity to build a resilient business. Working with technology and more. A business built for change. Built to empower talent. Built to control cost. All of the pieces working at the speed of insight. A smarter business is built for change.
Supply chains are an essential service to our daily lives. It is the backbone of a resilient global economy and a true source of differentiation and innovation for enterprises. And this is especially relevant during our current global situation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, here we are. You are joining us live right now as we broadcast to you around the world. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief, CEO, and founder of Forecast News, and I have the honor and privilege of being your host today. Welcome to IBM Supply Chain Academy 2020. Now today, you are joined virtually by 250 supply chain executives and operations leaders from more than 10 countries across the Asia-Pacific region. We promise that this is going to be an exciting and inspiring day. And boy, do we need it. I mean, if you take a look around right now, the coronavirus has disrupted every part of our lives, your family's life, your work life, every industry. It's challenged our governments. It's disrupted the foundation of really how the world operates. According to DNB, 94% of Fortune 1000 companies are facing supply chain disruptions today. So we need to create smarter supply chains for the future. Supply chains that are more resilient, predictable, and help you deliver on more customer promises. Our customers are waiting for it. So we're bringing together right now industry experts, leading clients, and a variety of resources to help you stabilize your business by strengthening your supply chain. Welcome to this webcast. It is our honor, and we are being joined live around the world. Let's see how. We have a well-planned agenda for the next 2 hours with carefully chosen topics that will help you build a more resilient, smarter, and more predictable global supply chain to manage disruption and maintain business continuity. So we've got, as you can see on the screen, a fantastic lineup of speakers awaiting you. And you're going to hear from industry experts and leaders from esteemed organizations like Yamaha Motors, Tektronix Industries, and Maruti Suzuki. But first, we're going to start with a keynote for you, which goes live in about 5 minutes, so get ready for that. In the keynote, you're going to be hearing from Jonathan Wright from IBM and Mr. Hiroshi Koike from Yamaha Motors Philippines on how we can create smarter supply chains that are built for today, but ready for tomorrow. We're going to also have an insightful panel that includes Vipin Jain from Maruti Suzuki, Grant Edhouse from TTI, Pradeep Singh and Levine Naidu from IBM. And they're really going to be showing examples of how forward-looking organizations are making their supply chains resilient and frictionless. They're going to be sharing some anecdotes and real-life examples with you. And at the end of the panel, the IBM supply chain experts in Asia Pacific, and that's Pradeep and Levine, are going to be available for a live chat with you guys to take up your supply chain related queries. And so it's a really great opportunity to ask our experts live. And what's more, you can even schedule a personalized one-on-one consultation with IBM experts at no charge. That's what the IBM team is here for. So I'm going to encourage you to do that by scheduling a consult, by just using that schedule a consultation button right there on your screen. And I want to show you, before we get started with the sessions, to really get a quick demo. It's for you. A quick demo for our Interactive Academy virtual environment that we've worked really hard to make easy to use. It's interactive, it's engaging, so that you can have a high quality experience. So if you take a look at your console right now, when you first logged in, your console would have looked something like this. And this is basically your entree point to the Academy. And you can do a lot here. Okay, so click to watch the insightful sessions, the keynote, which you're currently watching right here live, or the panel discussion, which will go live in about 25 minutes. So there's a lot of things you can interact and experience with. You can also experience immersive supply chain solution demos. You can schedule the personalized no-charge consultation with the experts. It's that schedule, the consultation button there that we've built in. And lastly, we're gonna have some exclusive content like analyst reports and case studies and videos that, of course, you have access to in the resource center. So currently, your console is going to be looking something like this. And this part of the environment really provides you with an interactive tool set with which you can see the speaker bios. So you know exactly who is speaking and their area of expertise. Join the ever-growing IBM supply chain community. It's the network that's super important so that you can network with your global peers. And of course, you can really explore some cool content here. And of course, that no charge consultation that you can schedule with the IBM experts. So please feel free to explore and use that interactive tool set. And lastly, don't forget to use the Q&A widget to chat with our experts, or simply to submit your questions for the live Q&A at the end of the panel. So you're all set, okay? So it's time to get started, everyone. It's time for the keynote session. It is my honor, I'm very pleased to welcome IBM's Global Lead, Cognitive Process, Reengineering, and Global Vice President for Supply Chain Consulting, Jonathan Wright. Now, Jonathan is recognized globally for his thought leadership and his work in the area of supply chain and operations. And he brings over 25 years of supply chain consulting experience to this keynote. He's going to be joined by Koike-san, President and CEO of Yamaha Motor Company, Philippines. With more than 21 years of work experience at Yamaha, he has worked across multiple geographies, including North America, Europe, and Australia. These two very experienced industry leaders will be discussing a topic very pertinent for our current times: how smarter supply chains can help you drive resiliency, agility, and predictability. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Jonathan Wright and Koike-san.
Hello and welcome to Building Resiliency Through Smarter Supply Chains. It's an absolute privilege to be joined today by Koike-san, the CEO and President of Yamaha Motors Philippines. Welcome, Koike-san.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here and be able to speak in front of all of you, and hope I'll be able to give some good insight to all of you. Thank you.
To everybody who's joined this session, thank you. This is a really important session as we really look at how technology and how new supply chains are going to evolve as we come out of this COVID challenge. This has been an incredible 6 months, and I see huge opportunities ahead of us. I think now is such an important time to be involved in supply chain. We're learning so much about the fragility of our supply chains. When COVID first hit and when Wuhan went into lockdown in January, we started to understand what it felt like to have a supply shock. And then as states and nations went into lockdown in March, we felt what it was like to have demand shocks. For the first time ever, we've had significant demand and supply shocks happening at the same time. In APAC, we're used to supply shocks. We're used to disruptions. But never have we seen this level of disruption hitting our supply chains. And we're learning a lot about how to create supply chains of the future that are more resilient, that can allow us to emerge stronger. When we started in January, we faced challenges around protecting our employees, making sure that we met the needs of our customers, how we supported remote working and what that did to manufacturing and to organizations. We then went into a temporary normal, where we're kind of coming to the end of that. But in that temporary normal, we needed to realign and tighten our supply chain responsibilities and our relationships around the ecosystem. We needed to prepare our employees to return to work. We needed to think hard about the requirements of our customers and what their new demand signal looked like. As we look to the future, we're now looking at how we can bring AI, automation, technology to really differentiate, how we can get closer to the demand signal and not rely on yesterday's demand as a predictor of the future, but to understand the real demand signals that are impacting the forecast for tomorrow. How we create a much more resilient supply chain and a deeper understanding of the drivers behind supply chain. If you look to the next slide, I think it's important to go back over time. Over the last few decades, we've managed supply chain through a very stable environment, very predictable environment. Now we're entering a period of volatility. When we started, it was okay to start rationalizing, reducing inventory, becoming leaner, pushing more pressure down the supply chain, focusing on cost to serve and really becoming thinner and extending our supply chains longer. But now we're in a period where we have to think more about what our customers need, how we operate in a volatile environment, how we actually think harder about the user experience and how that then impacts the customer experience, how we create self-learning, self-correcting supply chain systems, how we get rid of mundane tasks and focus on value-added tasks. And I think now is a time which is going to be accelerated by COVID, where we bring together convergent technologies to create the supply chain of the future. If you just jump to the next slide, I've seen 4 areas that our customers have been really, really passionate about over that middle period as they've been trying to readjust to the supply chains of the future. COVID exposed fragility in the supply chain, and these are the key areas that I've seen clients focusing on. First of all, AI into demand-driven sensing. As I said, not relying on history, but focusing on what is actually driving demand. Not driving looking in the rearguard mirror, but driving looking through the windscreen in front of us. If we look at the second area, it's all about continuous collaborative planning. So that's really pulling together the horizontal planning teams of logistics, of inventory, of warehousing, bringing them together and collaborating on real-time information to make sure that you're meeting the customer needs. The third area has all been around control towers and having a one version of the truth data set across the whole supply chain, across the ecosystem that supports the end customer. And the final area is all about onboarding of suppliers. IBM Supplier Connect is a powerful tool using blockchain that creates a trust your supplier environment that allows you to rapidly onboard suppliers. These have probably been the 4 most important areas that we've been driving with our clients. But enough about that. I think the important thing now is to go and speak to Koiki-san and understand how in the Philippines, Yamaha have been adjusting to this challenging period. So can I just turn to you, Koike-san, and ask you a little bit about your supply chain? So tell me about your supply chain and some of the lessons that you've learned from the recent disruptions.
In order to answer that question, please allow me to simply explain what the background of Yamaha Motor Philippines as well as the motorcycle market here in the Philippines. And Yamaha Motor Philippines was established 2007, which we took over the business from what used to be looked after by the third-party distributor. And the motorcycle demand at the time was 760,000 units per year, which our market share was only 7%, fourth player in the market, where the number one used to be Honda with 63%. In 2009, we built a factory plant, which mainly procuring the CKD parts from overseas Yamaha Group factories, such as from China, Indonesia, India, as well as importing some CBUs from Indonesia and Japan as well. And last year, the motorcycle demand has grown to 2.4 million units per year. And also our market share has grown to 35%, being number two player in the market, just following after Honda, which holds 38%. So the total market has grown, and also our market share has grown. And also just in past 5 years, our business has grown to 4 times more, which we start to face some issues in the delivery domestically since last year. Simply, the business has grown our capacity for the company. And on top of that, beginning of this year, we start to face extra challenges, such as there was tall volcano in January. And when that started to ease off, mid-March, we start to have a lockdown due to COVID-19. And of course, this COVID-19 issue did not only create issues here domestically in the Philippines, it became something global. So factories in China, Indonesia, India, also they are facing a lockdown, which also affected our supply in CKD parts. So there's been lots of issues that we've experienced this year. And there's been lots of key lessons that we have learned. One is immediate focus to ensure safety of employees, dealers, and customers. But not only that, while we care about the safety of people physically, also we need to care about people mentally. So as for my part as a leader, I had to be clear and consistent on any of the decision that or direction that I make, so people can understand the principle behind what I say. And of course, as you know better than I do, there's no one answer to the business, and it is difficult to make 100% of people satisfied. At least you're consistent and clear. That will make people feel secured. And on the supply chain side, of course, the visibility of end-to-end supply chain has become really important, so we can evaluate what's going on even with this disruption. And if we understand the current situations correctly, we will be able to make the right immediate decisions. And moving forward, also we need to think about making analytic-led demand planning, so we can really calibrate and focus-based external events impacting our supply chain and try to balance our supply accordingly. So these are some of the items that we have learned through the lesson that we experienced in the past few months.
Thanks. That's truly insightful. Thanks for sharing that. Now a follow-up question. What are some of the positives or the takeaways that you see that will help you emerge stronger from this challenging period?
First of all, for our part, as I mentioned, because we started to face some issues since last year, I thought this will be a really good chance to really analyze and organize our operation. So that's one. Also, another thing what we see is due to this new normal situation, now we see new type of demand coming. People are preferring their own personal mobility comparing to using the public transportation. One is, of course, it's difficult to keep the social distance in the public transportation, but also because they're limiting the number of people getting on either into the bus or a train, also makes very difficult people to commute by public transportation. So this is one, and also because people are becoming hesitant to go out to restaurant or do grocery shopping, the new type of business, which mainly is food delivery or grocery delivery, is growing, and many of these people are using motorcycles. So now we are seeing new demand, which is caused by this new normal. And as for Yamaha Motor Philippines, to support this new normal, we believe we have the responsibility to change the way people commute in Philippines and try to assure people there's a more safer way to commute. There's more safer choice. And even before this COVID-19 situation, we are seeing big potential in the long term. The Philippine market will grow. But some of these factors that I just mentioned a while ago will becomes another positive factor for us looking into long-term future. And in order to meet such growing demand and to continue our leadership position in the Philippines, we're expanding our production and assembly capacity in our Manila plant. And to build resilient supply chain capabilities, we have also embarked on a supply chain transformation program together with IBM to build a leading end-to-end planning process capabilities, enabling with digital and cognitive capabilities to drive resiliency, visibility, and integration across the business network.
Wow, thank you. Really insightful. Thank you, Koike-san. Now, as we wrap up, some of the takeaways that I'd like to share with you. First of all, I do believe, and I've said this before, this is a super important time to be part of supply chain. Now is where we need supply chain executives and supply chain professionals to really dig deep and make sure that we learn from COVID and that we build more resilient supply chains in the future. 4 key takeaways for me. The historic known supply chain issues are now critical for the future. We need to solve those known supply chain issues around data, issues around S&OP, issues around collaboration. We need to make sure that we fix those known issues. Now's the chance that organizations around the world will be focusing on supply chain. It's your chance to get the dollars and make sure you invest those dollars wisely in creating supply chains for the future. The second is to really leverage convergent and emerging technology. Leverage AI, leverage automation. Make sure that we use that convergent technology to create intelligent workflows that will accelerate towards the future vision. Thirdly, harden the solutions that you've created through this COVID environment, where you've pushed the organization to new ways. You've broken down orthodoxies of the past and created new ways of thinking. Harden those solutions, build them into intelligent workflows, and make sure they are part of your future state architecture. And finally, continue to maintain a high focus on the employee experience. As we bring new technology into supply chains, focus on the user experience. We want our users to enjoy going to work. We want them to have cool work experiences. If they do that, they will focus on the customer. They will focus on working and giving 110% to make sure that we are working together to create smarter businesses for the future. So I hope you found this useful. Koike-san, thank you so much for your insights. Really, really valuable. And I look forward to creating smarter supply chains for the future. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Koike-san, for your perspectives and really sharing some useful and pertinent insights as well as experiences with our audience. And last check, I was just checking the numbers there. It is now in the hundreds. So it's swelling, and obviously this is a very pertinent issue at hand for so many people. So, of course, we just heard from two very seasoned and senior industry leaders about how technology is really helping us understand how new supply chains are going to evolve as we come out of this current challenge, and we will. So we need to be prepared. And Jonathan and Koike-san shared how COVID-19 really has exposed the fragility in global supply chains and highlighted the importance of AI, automation, and technology-led capabilities in the business to respond to and mitigate disruptions. Very important there. But of course, before we go any further, I kind of want to take pause. I want to get a pulse from the audience. I'm talking to you, joining us live from around the world. There are a few hundred of you right now joining us from all parts of the world. And we want to give you a chance to share your point of view. So we want to know what you think. So let's run a quick poll here. It's fairly simple, straightforward, and I promise you it's going to be fun. Okay, so let's take a look at what this is. We've got the poll question here. What's the biggest challenge you face in your supply chain today? I'm going to give you 30 seconds as I roll off your options here. Do you think it's lack of resiliency, agility, and predictability? Maybe you think it's lack of intelligent end-to-end visibility and transparency, or might it be complex supplier onboarding and collaboration, or could it be order management and delivery? Are you ready? Go ahead and press your choice. And in 3, 2, 1, let's see what you all have responded to. And wow, close to 60% of you, that's 55.9%. I'm just going to roll it up to 60%. Or 56%, believe that most of you have called out lack of intelligent and end-to-end visibility and transparency as the key challenge. And that's not at all surprising given that, the current situation that we're truly all facing with COVID-19. So, all right, it's now time to conclude our first webcast. It was quick, it was engaging, it was thoughtful, and I hope that you got some relevant insights from this session. I do want to remind you to use that schedule a consultation option. It's there for you to book your slot for really a no-charge, personalized one-on-one consultation with IBM experts. That's what we're here for. It is about education. It's about information. Knowledge is power. And we're super excited to hear from you. So next up is an exciting and insightful panel where you're going to hear from two very seasoned executives on how they are managing supply chains from their respective organizations. And I'm talking about Maruti Suzuki and Tektronix Industries. They're going to be joined by two supply chain executives from IBM Asia Pacific. And together, this whole group is going to be participating in what promises to be a very engaging and thought-provoking discussion on the journey to a frictionless and resilient supply chain. And in this session, you can learn how forward-looking organizations are adapting supply chains to the disruption caused by the pandemic. And so there you have it. The panel starts in a couple of minutes from now. And to launch that session, I'm going to request that you click on the Watch Panel tab, as you can see on this slide right here. Once the panel starts, don't forget, because we're here for you, and you're part of this conversation as well. Submit your questions or chat live with our SMEs, Pradeep and Levine. They're going to be joining us, of course. So our current session closes in about 10 seconds, and you're going to be taken back to the console automatically from where you can access that panel, and I will meet you there. Thank you all.